This video is the second part to the Arknights math formula. The link to the first video is on the info card in the top right hand corner, so go watch that first if you haven't. Otherwise, Amiya might track you down. Anyways, more damage formula time. Yay! Okay everyone, that about wraps it up for today's class. If you have any questions, feel free to stop by my office, and make sure to do your homework. Damage amplifiers increase the damage enemies take by a percentage and stack multiplicatively. As I've stated before, if other operators can benefit from the skill or talent, then it's a damage amplifier, not a multiplicative modifier, which is in the first part of the damage formula. Another way to differentiate between the two is to see if the number is above 100%. If it is, like Siege's second skill, then it's a multiplicative modifier. If it isn't, like W's talent, then it's a damage amplifier. Anyways, this step is really easy. After you calculated the damage after the first two parts of the formula, all you have to do now is multiply. Take the percentages, convert them to decimal form as usual, and multiply by the damage. Guard Mia's S2 has a final attack of 1771. Since the Mudrock Colossi have 30 arts resistance, they will take 70% arts damage. We apply the arts damage formula here, multiplying her hit damage against the 0.7 of the actual damage the golem takes, and we get 1239.7. Now we just amplify this damage. With Seria's S3, enemies take 55% more arts damage, and Suzerain's S3 also amplifies all damage by 40%. Convert the amplifiers to decimals, which are 1.55 and 1.4 for Seria and Suzerain respectively, and multiply the 1239.7 by these multipliers, and you get 2690. That's pretty much it for this last step. Just multiply whatever damage amplifiers you have after your first two steps and you're done. To recap this entire damage per hit formula, you first calculate the operator's final attack, which is determined with skill and talent additives, add on inspire effects, and multiply it by multiplicative modifiers. You then take whatever defense or arts resistance the enemy has and apply debuffs and ignore effects. First is flats, then comes percentages, and finally you apply the ignore effects. After you've done that, apply the physical or arts damage formula depending on the operator damage type. Once you have this number, you multiply it by your damage amps and boom, you're done. It's an 8-ish step process, but most of the time you won't have half of these steps since the majority of them are certain types of buffs and debuffs, so you wind up basically skipping half of the formula. Alright class, pass your homework to the front. What do you mean your dog ate your homework? Oh, wait. Oh. Saga, this is a bowl of rice. Okay, so the only person who actually turned in their homework was Calcit? Alright, let me just check the answers real quick. Calcit, I asked for the answer to 2 plus 2. Why did you give me an entire essay on industrialization and its effects on humanity? To make sure you really understand formula priority as a whole, and for one last kicker, let's do one last super complicated problem. We're going to do a Surtr buff army on Patriot. We're going to use Warfryn and Sculptor as buffers, Ifrit as a debuffer, and Seria, Suzerain, and the Mines as damage amps. Surtr has a base attack of 772. She has 2 attack additive modifiers, one from Warfryn and one from her S3. Warfryn's S2 buffs the attack of an operator by adding 90% of their base attack, while Surtr's own S3 does it by 330%. Multiply this by Surtr's base attack of 772, and Surtr now has an attack stat of 4014. Now for Sculptor's Inspire effect. Sculptor is a tiny bit more complicated than Sora, mainly because she has a base attack additive of 6% with her talent if allies are in her range. My Sculptor has a base attack of 407. Adding the modifiers to her attack, she now has 431 attack. Since Sculptor's S3 is a multiplicative modifier of 110%, we multiply the 431 by 1.1 to get 474.1. Add this onto all the additives we calculated before, and Surtr should now have an attack of 4489. Since Surtr doesn't have any multiplicative modifiers, we can just skip this step. Now onto Patriot's arts resistance debuffing. Ifrit alone accounts for 2 types of debuffs. Her S3 has a -20 flat resistance down, while her talent shreds 44% of the enemy's arts res. Patriot has 90 res in phase 1. We take that 90 res, subtract 20 from it, getting 70. Since Ifrit shreds 44% of Patriot's resistance, this means he'll have 56% of his resistance left. 70 times that number is 39.2. Surtr has a built-in ignore 20 arts resistance talent, making this number go down to 19.2. So from Surtr's perspective, Patriot will have 19.2 arts resistance left. We apply the arts damage formula here, taking the final attack from step 1, which is 4,489, and multiply that by the percentage of damage Patriot will take, which is 80.8, and we get 3,627. All we have left is damage amplifiers. The mines in 718 multiply all damage taken by 1.5 on the enemy. Saria's S3 has a 1.55 arts damage amp, and Suzerain's S3 has a 1.4 damage amp. Take all these numbers, multiply them together, and you get 11,806, which is the damage per hit Surtr should be doing to Patriot. Huh. Now, there's a slight thing I forgot to mention when talking about damage reduction. Enemies can also modify their own stats in the same way of the formula. A lot of people know that Patriot has 90 arts resistance in his first phase, but where does it actually come from? Patriot has 45 res in his base stats, but his first phase talent multiplies it by 2, giving him 90 resistance. This is why Patriot is one of the 2 enemies unique to this situation. He has his own percentage modifier while the rest of the enemies only have flat modifiers. Where do we put this in the damage reduction formula? Well, he modifies his arts resistance by 200%, so it's a percentage modifier. Let's recalculate the damage reduction and damage amplifier steps then. Patriot has 45 arts resistance as his base stats. We subtract 20 because of Ifrit's flat debuff on her S3. This causes his res to go down to 25. Now for the percentage modifiers. Patriot doubles his own arts resistance, but Ifrit also shreds 44% of it, meaning he'll have 56% of his res left. We multiply all these numbers together to get 28. Finally, Surtr has her ignore talent that reduces his arts resistance down to 8. We already calculated Surtr's final attack to be at 4,489, and applying the arts damage formula on Patriot's res, her damage turns out to be 4,130. The last step is damage amplifiers. Multiply this number by the damage amps, which are Saria and Suzerain's third skills, as well as the mines that increase damage by 1.5 times, and you get 13,443. Since none of you did the homework properly, I guess we'll just do it as a class. Saga, can you work out the answer to question 1? Where did she go?